I'm sitting here, right, trying to read the news, and the Senate, they vote to add Finland and Sweden to NATO, and I'm just like trying to mind my own business. And the global political establishment, trying to start World War III, and I'm just like, come on, man. I'm trying to watch movies, play video games. They're trying to start World War III, and for what? Nancy Pelosi goes to Taiwan. Here's the news. Now China has begun firing all of these missiles. Oh, look at these videos. That's this crazy imagery, man. We have this map showing the basically the PLA, China's army, surrounding Taiwan and even invading its territorial waters. They sent 27 warplanes into the Taiwanese air defense zone. And I'm just like, yo, Nancy Pelosi, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? I want to go watch Bullet Train with Brad Pitt, and now I got to worry about World War III? Okay, I'm half kidding, to be completely honest. Not only do we have this story, but we also have Senate overwhelmingly votes to add Sweden and Finland to NATO. The lopsided bipartisan vote demonstrated broad support in the United States for one of the most significant expansions of the military alliance. And Russia's continued assault on Ukraine. Yo, I don't care about NATO. I literally do not. The Soviet Union does not exist anymore. I'm not a fan of Russia. I think their government pretty bad. But you know what's happening right now in Europe? Russia says if Finland and Sweden join NATO, it's basically World War III. Just think about what that means. I've talked about it with the Soviet Union, talking about it with Vietnam and the Gulf of Tonkin. Doing this, because Josh Hawley voted against it. I respect that. Even Rand Paul only voted present. This is a massive expansion of NATO power encroaching on Europe. And of course, Russia's going to be like, dude, we're not okay with this. Russia's now come out the other day saying they will fight for China if war breaks out with Taiwan. Pelosi's just left Taiwan. Now you got China firing missiles. I'm sorry, man. This image, looking at what China is doing, how is this not a declaration of war? Surrounding the island, in their minds, Taiwan is China. But as far as we're concerned, I think this shows the complexity and the problem of how this is all going to go down. What they're doing in Taiwanese territorial waters, if it was any other country, would be an act of war. Firing missiles into the air in their territorial waters, flying planes into their air defense zone. All right, let's slow down for a minute. And we'll talk about what's going on with China and the big news that Sweden and Finland are now have been voted in to join NATO by the Senate. Yo, this is the United States. All these senators, every single one, basically saying, we want war. Let's light it up. Psychopaths, narcissistic psychopaths. Russia is not that powerful. But you have to imagine what it would be like to be surrounded by an expansive military force and what the reaction would be. Imagine you are the United States. It is 1965. Let's just give it a good old Cold War year. And all of a sudden, there's missiles. What do you think the U.S. would do if Mexico was about to join a Russian military alliance with all of these Central American states? What do you think the U.S. would do? Do you think we'd sit by and be like, we're okay with that? Russia may not be the threat that it was when it was the principle of the Soviet Union. But you have to imagine Russia. You have to understand Russia is still powerful. And from where they are, they see NATO expanding. It is provocation. What is the justification for this massive, expansive military alliance? Under Donald Trump, he was calling out NATO, saying, like, why aren't you paying your bills? You expect us to pay for all this stuff? Russia backed off. Donald Trump crushed ISIS, peace in the Middle East. You know what's really, really amazing is that Donald Trump's vision it's remarkable. It's my vision of globalism. No, let me tell you. America first, right? That was Donald Trump's plan. But was it Serbia, Kosovo, peace agreements, the Abraham Accords, peace agreements in the Middle East, trying to bring about peace in North Korea? Wow, it's really amazing. Russia was somewhat backed off from Ukraine. I'm not going to say, they'd already taken Crimea. But Russia's attitude was like, we are less threatened. by an expansive military power coming from the West. Donald Trump was actually bringing about peace. You know what I see in the future for globalism? Not that that's the right word. I see a one world government, but it's comprised of treaties. I see the United States being sovereign, enforcing laws within its own borders, having trade agreements internationally, and we avoid international war by having peace agreements and having trade agreements and having international courts and lawsuits, things like that. Because the appetite for war, it diminishes over a long period of time. Or at least with Donald Trump, that would have been the case. The future I saw with Donald Trump was, decorum, fine. The guy's got a potty mouth, but peace and prosperity for the United States. Getting our troops out of the Middle East, smart move. Abraham Accords, come on, man. Now what do we get? Joe Biden comes in and they want world domination. Their vision of globalism is that they dominate the world and everyone bows before them. Look, I'm not convinced that, Donald Trump's strategy of shoring up America would guarantee that China would not take over, that the world would not become unipolar in Chinese control. I see under Donald Trump, China was reeling. They did not like it. I mean, maybe there's a threat that they lash out and they become violent and then we see war. But worse than what we're seeing now, I should read the news instead of ranting once again about foreign policy. The New York Times reports, Senate overwhelmingly votes to add Sweden and Finland to NATO, which, of course, many of you know, Russia said was a red line and could ignite war. The vote was 95-1, with only one Senator, Josh Hawley, bravo, Republican from Missouri, opposing the move. The lopsided tally, far surpassing the 2/3 support necessary to approve the treaty, underscored the bipartisan appetite for a more muscular Western military alliance, even amid threats from Russian officials that Sweden and Finland would face retaliation should they join NATO. Finland and Sweden's membership will strengthen NATO even further. I'm going to tell you right now, there's probably a lot of these Democrat, Ukraine flag, crazy people being like, Russia can't do anything to Finland and Sweden because now they're in NATO. Yeah, but China is not too happy. And we are facing war on the Eastern European front and the Pacific theater. This is psychotic. I don't know what these people are thinking. I just think our government is comprised of narcissistic sociopaths who can't justify their actions, who somehow let ISIS flourish. Oh, it's real convenient destabilizing Syria. I take a look at the uniparty establishment. What do they want? They want world domination. They want to control it. They don't care about the United States. They want their little group of international corporations, CEOs, billionaires, politicians. It is their world. For me, I'm kind of like, maybe we have a world peace. How about that? They don't want to admit it, but under Donald Trump, we were probably closer than we've ever been. But that's bad. That's bad for these people. You know why? You take a look at what happens with Syria. You take a look at what happens with China. How do you get what you want? You need China to do this so you can justify expansive military action. Daily Mail reports, China launches its biggest ever live fire military drill just 12 miles off Taiwan. Beijing miscalculation could spark war with missiles shot over the island for the first time in rehearsal for invasion. Rehearsal? They're doing it, dude. What they're doing is they're putting pressure surrounding it because they're going to take this island at any moment. If Strauss-Howe generational theory is going to be proven to be correct, it'll have to happen this year. If each turning crisis period lasts about 4 years, it's going to happen now. But hey, the times they are changing, so who knows? They're firing missiles. This is absolutely just total. This is insane stuff. And Nancy Pelosi goes to Taiwan for what? To tell them prepare for war? I don't know. Biden just signed this $53 billion funding of U.S. chip manufacturing. This is how it goes, man. I often talk about civil war, right? And I say that one thing that's required for war is supply lines, resources. So as you see the expansion of a parallel economy, which is, as more and more people in the U.S. get censored, there are companies popping up like the company, it's literally called Parallel Economy, that seek to bypass this censorship. The country is fracturing. This means that there will be paths towards resources for opposing factions. Right now in the world, when the U.S. says we're going to start making our own silicon chips away from Taiwan, it's simply put, we are building up our parallel economy. We are bringing back core manufacturing to our country. And that means that we are prepped and primed for some major international conflict. If China is launching missiles and surrounding Taiwan, a couple things could happen. The U.S. maybe went there to formally say, we will not protect you. I'm sorry, but we won't risk World War III. Or Nancy Pelosi went there to say outright, World War III is already started. I mean, the Pope said it started. I saw a tweet earlier. Someone said that when Hitler invaded Poland, nobody knew that World War II had just begun. But it did. And the same could be true with Ukraine. Now, they went on to say, if we defeat Russia in Ukraine, we prevent World War III. You really think that's the case? You think nuclear-armed Russia is going to go, oh, no, we've lost Ukraine. Guess we surrender. Or they're going to be like sitting back being like, we may not have the fighters, we may not have the jets, the SAM sites, whatever, to stop U.S. military might, but we do have ICBMs. And what's that? The Satan missile is what NATO calls it. A 50 megaton MIRV ICBM. Man, I take a look at what's going on and I say, for what? For what? For what? But what do? We don't want China to take Taiwan. I don't like the fact that the CCP ever emerged in the first place and forced the Republic of China onto the island of Taiwan. But what do we do? Does the United States just say we're going to keep expanding our military power, adding Finland and Sweden to NATO? For what? You know, it's crazy that under Trump, we were seeing peace. Isn't it nuts? China's doing oil exploration in Africa and South America. There was this plan like 8 years ago. It was longer. I mean, the plan probably started a while ago for the Nicaraguan Canal. China didn't like that we have basically control of the Panama Canal. Although technically Panama was handed over control, we know the West controls it. And so they wanted to dig through Nicaragua, which is insane. I mean, Panama is very narrow, so you can do this canal, which allows, not having to go all the way around the American continents. And the Nicaraguan Canal would give China competition in that regard. It would have destroyed a major source of fresh water. Ultimately, the project was scrapped. Yet China is absolutely challenging Western power. And people like Hillary Clinton, these Democratic establishment types, the bureaucratic state, and EU bureaucrats, they don't want to see it. So it's surprising to me that they don't see. It would be surprising to me if they didn't understand what they were doing was leading us to this major international conflict. They have to know. They absolutely have to know. U.S. approved Sweden and Finland, NATO, blah, blah, blah. You know what I was thinking when I was watching all this go down? If there's anything that's actually going to spark World War III, it's probably the tabloids. I'm serious. Look at this photo from The Sun, thesun.com. It shows China and the USA firing missiles, but it's the stupidest graphic I've ever seen. Can you understand why this graphic is stupid? Give you a second. For those that are listening, you're probably like, dude, just tell me. Okay. The graphic shows China firing missiles westward towards the USA to hit the USA's east coast. Why? Let me tell you two things. If you were actually going to map this out, based on the actual positioning of countries, China would fire its missiles eastward over the Pacific, which is a shorter distance than wrapping around the entire planet. Better yet, China would fire its missiles northward to go over the North Pole and then down to the U.S. I flew from New York to Hong Kong once. You go north because, Earth is round. I love this image. Anyway, I digress. If there's anything that I think will potentially spark World War III, it's going to be tabloids. Why? Because these websites, they want the clicks, and so they give you the most shocking interpretation. And you know what? I don't necessarily blame them. I shouldn't say the tabloids. I should say the media. We are all doing it, and it's cranked up to 11. In the crosshairs, writes The Sun, Russia must strike London first, when World War III erupts as Putin ally who reveals Kremlin plan to conquer Europe. So this guy goes on TV and he says a bunch of crackpot nonsense. The tabloids all say they're going to nuke London. He said this a couple months ago, nuking London. And then you got this one. Pelosi could be Franz Ferdinand figure that sparks potential World War III if China harms her on Taiwan trip. To be fair, it's that kind of rhetoric that may actually stop the conflict. No, seriously. I said the same thing. I said we could be looking at a Franz Ferdinand situation with Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan because all you need is one rogue actor to be like, long live China or the Communist Party and do the red salute and then harm Pelosi or something. But I will add, this story, while it's, insane showing these missiles kind of go in the most ridiculous direction, maybe they want the world to see the missiles fly overhead. I don't know. This story might actually wake these people up. You don't want a Franz Ferdinand situation. We don't want an eruption of a war over one person being hit. Red alert. China's growing nuclear threat. We here in the United States, we got very, very powerful nuclear weapons, but I believe Russia has the most powerful. So you can rag on Russia all day and night. I think they've got, like 60 million people. Not even that many people, but they got nukes. They got nukes. They've got the best nukes. Everyone agrees. They've got the Satan 50 megaton MIRV. They could pepper the eastern seaboard with, 8 megaton warheads. That's going to wipe out every urban center. I mean, it's not as big as people think it is, but a 50 megaton bomb obliterates the entirety of Washington, D.C. and the neighboring cities like Alexandria. I think even Baltimore gets hit by some of the blasts. Baltimore's not that far away from Washington, D.C., mind you. So they go on to mention that, when she touched down, okay, we get it. She left. It didn't go off. But what she did end up doing is provoking China into firing missiles. But I'll say maybe that's not even fair. China was planning this stuff, okay? China launching these missiles, firing rockets over Taiwan, surrounding Taiwan in this military exercise. We know they've been planning this. They've been doing beaching operations. They've been doing sand dredging, going around Taiwanese territorial waters and then just ripping apart the sand. They're like getting ready for beaching, for beaching the island, like just slamming into it. They're going to take it. What they're doing right now, surrounding it with live fire drills, it's isolating the island. It's going to shut down. Right now, you didn't understand this. These missiles flying overhead, some people are probably saying yeah, but so what? It's like the rockets are going over. They're not actually attacking. No. You think planes are coming in? You think planes are coming in? You think ships are coming in? You think goods are coming in? They could choke off the island, shut down food production, food shipments, starve Taiwan out, give it 3 days, and then they walk in and pick up the scraps. I think Taiwan is on the verge of falling. And I don't know if the U.S. is going to intervene. But if China does, Russia's immediately going to be on high alert. So then what happens? Does China then say will they declare support for Russia in the conflict in Ukraine? I think it was even George Soros who said this is the start of World War III. You don't get it because, I mean the rhetorical you, not literally you. Like you don't understand history because you're living it. You know what I mean? We are all this way. What I mean to say is the average person sees what's happening and says, this is not history, but it's always history. When we talk about World War III, or I'll put it this way, when we talk about this U.S. Civil War, right now people are saying we're not in a civil war is not coming. Okay. If a civil war does break out, in the history books, they're going to say the Civil War started September 17th, 2011 with Occupy Wall Street. Maybe not. They might talk about the precursor events to the Civil War, of which they'll include all of these things we have just lived through. They'll talk about the 2020 election. They'll say the Civil War started in 2020, with the election, and then Donald Trump's supporters on January 6th. They'll say that was the start. The insurrection at the White House was the beginning of the Civil War, and many people didn't know what they were looking at. And they'll say, in fact, there were many commentators like this person, Tim Pool, who said it was just a bad riot. But maybe that's the beginning. Because you get people locked up, people get angry, people won't back down, and then it escalates. We can't see where the escalation will take us or if the escalation will occur. What we're seeing right now with China, I don't think you should panic. I don't think you should be scared. What I do think is, I've done shout outs for safeandreadymeals.com on numerous occasions. And it's funny how, several leftist outlets were like mocking me for that. There's a huge flood just hit Kentucky. I mean, people are dying. They struggle to get supplies in. There was an algal bloom in, I think it was like the Cleveland area or something 10 years ago, and people had no water. And I'm just like, dude, you want to make fun of the idea that someone would have a first aid kit, some water, and some food backup so they can survive more than 3 days? Okay, let's be real. 6-7 days without water? It's crazy to me. Looking at all this stuff. China surrounding Taiwan and getting ready to make these moves, with Russia saying everything they're saying, with the saber rattling, with the war actually in Eastern Europe for the first time since World War II. We're tracking on we're following a similar track to the early 1900s. And people think, nothing's going to happen. But if you look at history, this is exactly what happens when things are happening. So look, maybe the golden age returns and the conflict dries up. Or maybe it's time to start thinking about what it may be like if a war really breaks out. They're talking about the inability to recruit soldiers. Do you know what that means? I got a wake-up call for Gen Z. They can't recruit people. People don't want to be in a woke military. So if a war really does break out, you know what that means? It means you will be drafted. We'll see how that plays out. This country would implode in 2 seconds. It's crazy days, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.